Welcome to Sausage on a Fork, a podcast dedicated to the UK's longest running children's drama programme, Grange Hill. My name's Neil, and in each episode I'll interview a former cast member about their life before, during and after their time on the programme. Okay, welcome to the latest episode of Sausage on a Fork. And just before I introduce the next guest, I need to say thank you to all of you listening out there. Because for anyone that doesn't know, last week, Sausage on a Fork hit 100,000 plays from the very start. So I can't thank you enough. It's numbers that I never dreamed we'd be getting. You know, we're getting 3,000 listeners a month now, and it's just phenomenal what you're doing. So thank you very much to anyone who's ever listened to any episode at all. I can't thank you enough. So let's crack on with this episode, and I have been joined for this episode by none other than Wayne Norman, who played Rod. Wayne, welcome to Sausage on a Fork.
Neil, thanks for inviting me, mate. Sorry it's taken a while to sort out, and congratulations on all those hits. 100,000, that's amazing.
Unreal, isn't it? Absolutely
brilliant,
unbelievable.
Well
I
really
can't get over it. Well, what we'll do, Wayne, is we'll start this episode the way we start every episode. And if you can tell us how you first got into acting.
Well, I was really young, I guess. I was always showing off in front of the family and friends, doing impersonations and little shows and making up skits and stuff. And I always did, you know, I think Who Do You Do was on at the time. So I was like trying to be like Freddie Starr, and I was always doing Maxwell and Norman Wisdom and all those sort of things, falling over and stuff. And I always did school shows. I was always the lead in school shows, the King or Jesus or Prince or whatever. And there was a school production. I grew up in Tottenham, North London. And there was a school production of Oliver the musical, but it wasn't a drama teacher. It was the music teacher. I won't say his name. And so I was 13. This was early 77. And we got up one by one, and I got up and I sang, I don't know, Who Will Buy or Consider Yourself or whatever it was. It was like, no, next. No, not quite good enough. Wait, sit down, next. And I was devastated. I was 13, and I went to see the school production, and my mate in my class was in it, David Walker, who played Oliver, and it was just, gutted not to be in it. And then a few months later, there was an open audition in one of the London papers, the Evening News. It was like a Friday. I don't remember, it was a Friday. It was like a double centre page spread. They had the search is on for a new Mark Lester or Jack Wilde. Yeah. And they were doing an open audition for Oliver, the West End production of Oliver, the next day on the Saturday. Right. Cameron McIntosh production, one of his, he would have been early 20s then, Cameron, I guess. Yeah. And so I walked the streets of Narm, and that night I went round to see David, who played Oliver, and he was busy doing a family thing. Other mates were going to Spurs to watch the Spuds. Other mates were doing whatever they did Saturday afternoons, nicking, fighting, football, whatever they did. So I was 13, I looked about 10, and I went on my own. But even at that age, we sort of knew the West End really well. We'd get a red bus Rover for 20 people, like a travel card, with mates. So I just went on my own. So I went down to the Phoenix Theatre in Charing Cross Road, one of the smallest theatres in town. And it was just queues of boys outside the theatre, and we finally got seen, and they were just seeing all the stage school boys and all the boys who had agents initially, and all the real kids off the streets had to come back in the afternoon. So I just dossed around for a few hours. I met another young lad who I think was a year older than me, and we just went round killing time. I went to Trafalgar Square and one of the London museums and things. And we got back. Cut a long story short, I got a recall for the show. My nan and granddad took me to the recall down at the Haymarket Theatre, a month or two later. So and then I got into the show. Wow. Being turned down from the school production of Oliver, within a year I was playing the Artful Dodger in the West End. Wow. So that was my way in, mate, really. I was like the only kid off the streets, really. All the other boys had agents and went to stage schools. Yeah. And so most of them in my gang when I started went to this specific one. So I ended up going there, Yeah. My parents couldn't afford to send me to a stage school. It was 120 quid a term or something. It was a lot of money. So I became like a fee earner. I think Mark Baxter and other guys have mentioned this before. So I did loads of work. I did loads and loads of work as a kid, and that paid your fees, Yeah. So that's my way into the stage school. And then I just did loads of work, loads of telly and film as a kid. And I bluffed my way into it then, and I'm still bluffing it now.
Well, if I can just go back to Oliver there, was there anyone else in it who we might...
At that time, for like Grange Hill style is
all right.
So in my class was Gary Love was in that. He was in my gang of Oliver. My best mate now, my oldest pal, like Perry Fennick, was in the other gang with Nick Berry and a few other guys.
Yeah.
But Gary Love was one of the guys who went to Speaks. Him and the brilliant Steve Gabelle was my Artful Dodger there. I idolised. He was fantastic, Steve.
Yeah.
But in my class, when I first went to Barbara Speaks, was Lindy Brill, Sarah Sugarman, Donald War, Larry Mark. I think Larry did. It was a Grange Hill. Mitch Horner as well. We did all stuff with Sarah, who's part of her gang. We did her storyline. And Christopher Hall did loads of stuff as well.
Brilliant. Okay. So, you said that you got quite a bit of work as a kid. And if we could just go through some of the things that you did, certainly on, television.
You'd be here for hours.
Like you did Terry and June, which was, a huge program at the time. It was massive, wasn't it? Like,
I did an episode of Terry and June. Yeah, playing a young, I think it was next door neighbour's nephew. His name was Magnus.
Yeah.
He was a graffiti artist who used to write obscene things on Terry and June's wall or something, the garden wall, things like that.
Right. But then you got a part, and it's safe to say, I think this part has stuck with you all your life, because you got a part in Wurzel Gummidge playing Pickles Brambles. And I'm saying it stuck with you all your life. Can you explain why that part has stuck with you all your life?
So Pickles, Bow Bells Bramble was Wurzel Gummidge's punk rock London nephew Scarecrow. And so I did a few episodes of that. And the nickname just stuck years later. I'll tell you how that came about. But there's another Grange Hill connection here, because the first audition for Wurzel, I think it was a hotel down in Victoria or something. Then we had to go to a recall back down to Southampton, which was Southern Television then. So this would have been, sort of early 79, I think.
Right.
And at Waterloo Station, getting the train down, I bumped into Todd, Carty and Vince Hall.
Wow.
Tucker and Doyley from the first series. I think the first series had only been on, or just finished recently. So the three of us were the recall to play Pickles in Wurzel.
Oh, wow.
And we just had a laugh, the three of us going down, and we remember got down to the studios, and we went in one at a time. And the director, James Hill, the amazing James Hill, directed like Born Free and The Black Beauty and all those Bellstone Fox, all those amazing sort of animal-related films and things. He asked me to do it there, and he said, "No, you're my Pickles." But I remember like Todd and Vince were just really lovely about it. They congratulated me, and it was really nice, because we sort of came back on the train together, and so I did a few episodes of Wurzel. And Pickles was horrible. It was horrible. Make Wurzel muck out sheep and do loads of jobs while he ate cake and drank tea.
Brilliant.
And would shut everyone in the village up the backside,
Yeah. And so it's safe to say then, you've been called, everyone calls you Pickles, everyone knows you as Pickles now. Is it because of that or something else?
It was because of that, really. So it was a couple of years later, it was a few years after that. And I was at the Finchley Lido. It was obviously the summer of 81 or 82 or something, early 80s, with my mate Grant. And we were sitting there, and he said, "Ian, that's that girl from Tucker's Luck over there." Oh, yeah. And I didn't know that. It was Elaine Lorden. I didn't know Elaine.
Right.
Then. So, that's my mate. That's Sweeney. That's Steve Sweeney. So I went over to say hello. I was like, "Sweeney, hello." And there was a few other friends. Lee Burke, Tilly Vosborough. We became really good pals at the time. Tim Roth was with them. And I said, "Well, where's Pell?" Because Pell was an Oliver as well, but we knew each other from then. And we always sort of bumped into each other and went out. And he said, "He's here." So his nickname was Kippy Fem, because he's always kipping.
Right. And
so we kicked him. He woke up and he went, "Oh, it's Pickles." So from that day, really, so down to Perry, really, that it became Pickles or Picks.
Brilliant, because when I mentioned you on Amanda Meelan's episode, And I mentioned, so you were in Murphy's Mob with Wayne Norman, and she went, "Oh, Pickles," straight away. And then someone else who will remain nameless, I was speaking to them last night, and I said you were coming on, and he said to me, "Oh, is that his first name?" Because I said Wayne Norman's coming on, and he said, "Oh, is that his first name?" I've only ever known him as Pickles.
Yeah, even I forget. Nobody really uses the W word anymore. Just like friends and family,
Yeah, your Sunday name.
Yeah, so that's how that came about. Really, on Murphy's Mob, I did the first 2 series, which was so that was ATV up at Elstree, where they ended up doing. Well, they still do EastEnders now, and we did Grange Hill there. Later on when it moved out of the television centre.
Yeah.
For the first 2 series in the early 80s, all those TV companies, they all lost their franchise. Right. So Southern Television became TVS when we first started Murphy's Mob, because Mandy was my girlfriend in it. So I was a leader of one gang, Geronimo, I think his name was, or something like that, Jerry. Yeah. And Keith Jane was the leader of the other gang. And so we would like have a tear up with the first episode. And then we all became mates and we all do stuff at the club. So that's how that sort of started, really. So all those companies lost their franchise. So ATV became Central TV. So when we finished the first series of Murphy's Mob, it became Central Television. And they had to move up to the.
Oh, right.
And that's why they moved to Nottingham. Actually, they moved from Elstree to Nottingham.
Yeah, because that was a big thing, Murphy's Mob, wasn't it? It was, it was a big. It's one of those programs, though. For some reason, it passed me by, but I just remember it being a really big deal at the time. It was filmed at. It was you used Watford.
Yeah, we filmed it all at Vicarage Road. Yeah, all the football stuff.
Yeah.
The first episode, because it was supposed to be set, it was based on Elton John. So the chairman was like a multi-millionaire driving around in a convertible.
Yeah.
All that, Terence and Terence Budd. And so the first episode, there was like a big roller disco thing underneath, which we filmed at Camden at the old Electric Ballroom, actually, which is still there now, I think. But all done at Watford, all that.
Brilliant. And then, there's a few other bits that I've looked at, like The Day of the Triffids, and you were in an episode of Dramarama. But I wanted to mention, you were in an episode of Scene, and you played Carl Stevens, but Jeffrey Baildon was in that, who obviously was the Crowman, and Steve Sweeney, who you've already mentioned as well.
Yeah, there's a few, and parallels, and like that's just reminded me, actually, Marcus, what was he, Marcus Francis? Was like the lead in the episode. It's all about that episode of Scene was all about if you could vote, if corporal punishment was to come, and things like that back in schools and stuff. It's quite a but Marcus was also in was in the thing called Starting Out, another Phil Redmond show. So after Grange Hill, after the first couple of series of Grange Hill, Phil wrote a late night thing for TVS, actually, down in Southampton again. Which was like all the older lads from Grange Hill. So there's swearing and it was a lot more violence and things, you know what I mean? It's an older version of Grange Hill, which is brilliant. I think they only ended up doing like one series.
Right.
It was brilliant. So Perry Benson was in that, and Peter Hugo Daly, the brilliant Paul Kelly, Gerard Kelly, Michelle Winstanley, that was a good series. I think it went out at midnight, some stupid late hour.
Yeah, and there was Shine On Harvey Moon. Now, the only reason I'm saying that is because when I looked at the cast list for the episode you were in, obviously Lee Whitlock was in it. Michael Sheard was in it, and Mark Farmer as well. So there's quite a bit of Grange Hill there.
Yeah, it was always little Grange Hill connections. There's a few, actually. So Mark was a really good mate. And so me and Mark played like a couple of grammar school bullies, and we just bullied Lee Whitlock about and just slapped him about and nicked his ball in the playground or something like that. I can't remember really too much about that. But Mark, obviously from Grange Hill as well. Mark, really good actor, Mark. Really good actor.
And, you've mentioned Starting Out, but there was something called Gems. Was that like a soap opera?
Oh, that was some sort of afternoon drama thing set in a fashion place in Covent Garden.
Right.
I think it ran for a few years. Cindy O'Callaghan was one of the leads in that, and Cindy was another kid actor. She was the little girl in Bedknobs and Broomsticks. But she left to EastEnders for years. Yeah. Yeah, Cindy, lovely, wonderful actor as well.
Just moving on to a few other things. So, was there a film called The Best Years of Your Life? And Lee Whitlock was in that.
Best years, yeah. Lee was brilliant in that.
And obviously, and Alan Ford,
Before he played his dad,
you know,
yeah. So,
Bricktop from Snatch, but also turned up in Grange Hill.
He was the dad in that, wasn't he?
He was. He was Sean Maguire's, Tex Ratcliffe's dad.
Right, okay.
And round about the same time you were in it, because when I've been researching, your character from Grange Hill, Alan Ford cropped up in a couple of scenes with Sean. Like
Best Years was a great film. It was written by a young man called Clive Germain. Clive died of cancer, spinal cancer, when he was 21, 22.
Right. And
he always wanted to be a cameraman for the BBC.
Right.
Clive. And when we did the film, we obviously got to know him really well. And so, Fordy was the dad, Lee was the son. Basically, he was Clive, really. So he just put his own situation in a young professional footballer. Right. So I played a Chelsea professional footballer. So we filmed all that at Stamford Bridge.
Oh, right.
Lovely scene on the pitch at Stamford Bridge with me, Lee, and another old pal, Stevie Fletcher, who played Lee's older brother in Best Years. And Lee was just brilliant in that film. Yeah,
well, I think he was brilliant in everything he was in. Lee Whitlock, he was such a cracking actor.
Yeah, and we played football. So I played for a charity football team for over 10, 15 years. Right. There's a few Grange Hill bods. Well, Lee played. Lee was a good player as well.
Yeah.
Good player. Johnny Alford played. Actually, that one up there. And Johnny Holmes is in that as well. Gone.
Oh, right. Yeah.
John played for us. So Gary Love as well, played for a few years. Phil Daniels, Ray Winston.
Yeah.
Just loads of mates, we just... One week you're playing against a pub side in Rotherham with one man and a dog, and the next week you are playing at, Highbury or White Hart Lane.
Yeah. Brilliant. And then I wanted to talk to you about Mr. Corbett's Ghost. Purely because when I looked at the cast of that film, I was blown away.
And Mark was brilliant in that as well, because Mark was the lead in that.
Yeah.
It's like an old sort of Dickensian type of horror story, really. And there's loads of character actors in that, So I was just one of Mark's friends, bunch of lads, and we had a couple of scenes. But in that film, me and Mark Farmer had a scene with Burgess Meredith.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about.
Burgess Meredith was the Penguin from Batman. I grew up as known, and he was also Rocky's trainer. And
Mickey.
Men, so I had a scene with the Penguin, and it was really sad because, bless him, he was, I think he was in his 80s then. Yeah. And he'd sort of know his lines, and he was all over the place, bless him. And he had I think he had something sort of written on a thing. And so me and Mark had to improvise around him to make this scene, a market stall or something like that, if I remember, in some old village. And they cut that scene from the film. So my scene with the Penguin I've never ever seen,
No, but like
Farmer and the Penguin.
Do you get starstruck in them situations?
And sometimes, not normally, because I've been grown up and I've worked with some amazing people, but things like Burgess Meredith, the Penguin.
Yeah, definitely.
Batman, I grew up with that, and
brilliant.
I got starstruck with footballers and players, and
and of course, Mr. Corbett's Ghost, David Nunn was in that.
Yeah,
as well. Now,
I was part of the game with Dave Nunn. Yeah.
David Nunn, to me, he's one of them people that he just turned up in everything, and he's one of those people you look at. I know him.
Yeah, what's his name?
Because he's in so
many. And Mark Farmer, they're from Alice Years. Same as like Stevie Fletcher and
brilliant. And then you did a few other bits, but you then moved on to Grange Hill. Okay, so we'll move on to that.
Yeah, but initially I did Grange Hill as an extra, and I think it was the second series. It was the episode where Benny finds 50p in the street.
That's the one.
And it's the football. Because I was in the Grange Hill football team and cricket team. Right. So that episode is like when he finds 50p, and it's in the dressing room after the game. It's Chris Hall. He says, sir, I've back to us. And he said, I've lost 50 pence. And everybody has to get their own out of their pockets. And Terry goes off. So he gets the blame, doesn't he? Even though he found it in the street. But I'm sitting next to between, I think, Terry and is it Paul Miller on the bench in that episode. And then like the Caretaker episode was like 10 years later after that.
Yeah, because I heard that you were in those scenes, and it's just the thing with that is, turn your pockets out because I've lost 50p, because there's no way Benny would have had 50p than that. That's the thing about it. Like, okay, so you then joined as a regular character, a lead character in 90. Well, it would have been 89.
89, we filmed it, yeah.
Yeah. And it went on air 1990, series 13.
Right, yeah.
And you played Rod the Caretaker. We don't know his surname.
No,
probably best given all the shenanigans that he went into. But Rod probably wasn't even his real name, to be fair.
Possibly.
But that series starts off with Mr. Griffiths arriving at the school and finding it already open, and obviously he's a bit put out.
Oh yeah, the kettle's on and all that.
The doors were open, the kettle was on, and then we find out that Rod was Mr. Griffiths' new assistant, because he was getting on a bit, wasn't he?
The brilliant George A. Cooper. I love that man. He was amazing. I just love working with him.
Now, I'm gonna say this: whenever I'm putting an episode of the podcast out, I will put picture clues on social media for people to guess who, the guest coming up is going to be. And the first person to guess who it is gets to ask a question to the following guest. So I've got a question for you from Jamie Waugh.
Oh.
And his question is, what was it like working with George A. Cooper? And have you got any stories about him?
I love that man. He was amazing because Georgie Cooper was, he as a character actor, he turned up in all those TV series in the 50s and 60s. He was in the Avengers and, all those sort of, I loved all those things. Randall and Hopkirk and all that sort of stuff. I loved all that as a kid. And he was in all of them.
Yeah.
And all those sort of films that he did. And he always popped up. So it's just a pleasure to work with him. And I just loved working and still do with old Thesps. I might say that I'm one myself now. I'm 60, but he just had loads of old theatrical stories, and because he was in the original Billy Liar in the original play, in the Waterhouse Willis play. Oh, another connection again. So Keith Waterhouse wrote Wurzel Gummidge, the series and things from Billy Liar. But so Georgie Cooper did the original play production with Albert Finney. Right. So they did the stage version before John Courtney did the film, and he didn't play the dad in the film. That was Wilfred Pickles.
Right.
Another man. Yeah. But he ended up doing the TV series of Billy Liar actually with Jeff Rawle, Georgie Cooper in the 70s.
Yeah.
Oh, he just stories, and I just love working with him. An old pro.
Yeah. The thing about George A. Cooper is he looked really old when he must have been a lot younger.
20s, yeah.
But then he never aged after that. He stayed looking exactly. You see, no matter what you see him in, he looks exactly the same.
Exactly.
And you know what? I'm starting to think, I wish that had happened to me. I wish I'd looked like this when I was 20, rather than seeing the slow decline over the years. You know what I mean?
We say that I've had to watch a couple of episodes this week, to be honest, because I can't remember too much about it, mate. It's 35 years.
Yeah.
And then, I had hair. I mean, I've been watching it for years. I even know, it's like, is that real? Is that a real Barnet I've got there?
Yeah.
And all my other stuff was with Johnny Drummond and Josh Fenton, the cards.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing with Rob. We found out that Mr. Griffiths did have an assistant through a conversation between Mr. Griffiths and Mr. Hargreaves. And the first time we actually see Rod is when Callie Donington, played by Simone Hyams, had pulled a door handle off the door, and Rod appeared and said he'd fix it. And Callie and Ronnie are like, who's that? And as they walk away, they're wondering who he was. And Ronnie said that he seemed like a bit of a creep, which is a nice introduction to I suppose.
Really, but he was trying to be nice for everybody, I guess, didn't he?
Yeah. Now, there was also a bit in running throughout that series was Jacko's dog, the little Jack Russell.
Oh, yeah, little Jack Russell. Yeah. I had to catch it at one point. I think.
Yeah. Because he caught it, and then he had the conversation with Trevor in Mr. Griffith's office. John Drummond, you've just mentioned there. So Trevor Cleaver Rod had the conversation with him about his own dog and how he used him for rabbiting.
Oh, right, I forgot that.
Which shows that maybe Rod wasn't adverse to some sort of illegal activities. And then Mr. Griffiths then appears and kicks Trevor and the dog out of the office. The thing about this series was Rod seemed to be doing a lot of jobs and doing them quickly and doing them well that Mr. Griffiths was supposed to be doing. And I think, Mr. Griffiths, being Mr. Griffiths, feel like his nose was getting a little bit put out of joint here. It made Mr. Griffiths wonder sort of why he was there. And Mr. Griffiths was told he was going to be a mentor for young Rodney, was the official sort of line that he was given. And that seemed to make Mr. Griffiths happy because he was great, wasn't he? He was so pompous and he was so good at being that pompous character. And Rod was trying to get things done, but Mr. Griffiths never seemed to be in any rush. He sort of like to, let's just settle this down. He was there trying to calm Rod down, and Rod said, I think we'll make a brilliant team, which they did, didn't they? And
yeah, my scenes with him were really lovely. You know what I mean? And there's little things. They had a couple of little comedy moments. Not a lot, to be honest.
No, but I'm going to come on to one of them in a minute. But I just thought the chemistry that you had with him was brilliant.
It's a shame we didn't do more, to be honest.
Yeah.
Looking back on the few bits that I did see, because I don't remember any of it, but much of it. But it was just,
And then we see Rod playing darts, and he seemed quite good at it. But Mr. Griffith said, you shouldn't be playing during your working hours. And then the next scene, Trevor Cleaver turns up in the office again. So, Trevor's there in the office playing dart. Rod told Trevor that he wouldn't have a game because Trevor was too good. So Trevor convinces Rod to have a go. And Rod was rubbish, surprisingly. So Trevor says, just needs to watch me more closely, Rod. You'll soon get the hang of it. And then Trevor said, it's too bad we're not playing for money. And Rod said, well, I wouldn't mind.
That's his way in then, isn't it?
Obviously hustles him in, you know what I mean? Because Rod was saying, if we're playing for money, it might help me concentrate. And he cleans him out, basically. But when Trevor wants the rematch, Rod wouldn't play because obviously Rod's thought, he's probably got onto me game here. I'm not going to play him again. He said Mr. Griffiths was already going mad because of all the holes in the wall that he'd had from there. But then that led on then, and this happened quite a few times, was the card school.
Yeah, so he's getting more of Cleaver, his mates in.
Yeah, it's like, Cleaver went and got Mauler in and another lad, Andy. And there was a few of them there, but because I always got the impression that Rod wasn't supposed to be that much older than those lads. They were all 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, I was sort of mid-20s when I did
that. And because when you see Rod's talking to Mr. Hargreaves, for example, he called him Sir. He never seemed to call him Mr. Hargreaves or Max, which was his first name. He always called him Sir. So I got the impression that he wasn't maybe meant to be that old. And the fact that he knocked about with these lads during his working hours as well. But the likes of Cleaver and Mauler, they all looked
just after their money, which is
but they all looked so much older anyway. They looked older than 16 and 17.
Well, they were sixth form anyway by then.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. So they have a game of cards, and obviously Rod wins that. And then, as we said, the other lads come in, and when they're playing, we see Rod had kind of a bit of a conscience because he wouldn't let Cleaver and Mauler smoke in the office, and because they were bad for it. It wasn't because he didn't want the room smelling of smoke. He actually said, I don't want you smoking your cancer sticks.
Right, okay.
In here, so he did have a little bit of, not much.
Then there was another thing later on, which sort of that contradicts itself then, because wasn't he trying to...
He was, that's what I was going to say.
Buying cigarettes, selling fags to the kids.
Because later on, he's getting Cleaver to go to shop for him to buy ciggies that he's then going to sell.
See, that's the thing, because earlier on, I was under the impression that Rod's storylines were going to get darker and darker throughout the series, because we only had the first so many scripts.
Yeah,
I see all the cards stuff and all the dance things and all that. I know it's going to get worse, and because all those fantastic big social issues that Grange Hill were dealing with. I thought, is it selling? Is it going to go down a path? I know, selling fags or selling drugs to the kids in the school. I didn't know, and it didn't get as dark and as deep as I thought it was going to be honest.
Now, the lads have a go at Rod saying the caretaker's job was easy. They're having a little bit of a go. Now, in my past, I've been a school caretaker.
Oh, really?
I did it for 3 months as a cover for the caretaker was off sick. And it certainly isn't easy. It's one of the most underrated jobs, I think, in the world, because you're there early, you're doing all the restock, the toilet paper's restocked, all that restocking gets done,
Kids winding you up.
Yeah, all that, like, it's all done. You've got to keep everything, and it certainly isn't easy. So I'm just getting that bit in. I'm fighting for the caretakers there. If anyone thinks the caretaker's job is easy, it really, really isn't. And again, that scene ended when the lads were having a go with Rod winning the game and taking all their money. And then they have another game, and it became apparent to the viewer that Rod was cheating, but not to the other lads. He had cards stuffed inside his jacket and stuff. When the lads weren't looking, he changed over. But you were saying there about the social conscience, the social storylines that Grange Hill does. And those cards games do sort of lead to one, because Morley ran out of money, and we see him develop just a little bit of a gambling addiction.
It's true, actually, yeah. And he steals
the photo frame. Yeah, because he was trying to get money off the kids.
Sell it to someone to get some money to play.
Yeah. But then he nicked the photo frame and he sold it to an antique shop.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
And it had Griffiths' photograph in.
Okay,
there's
a big hoo-ha about that.
Yeah. So like I say, that's one of them. I say it all the time, for the kids' TV program to be showing gambling addiction. I say, the groundbreaking. I use that phrase all the time, talking about Grange.
Amazing issues they dealt with. Yeah.
For the kids' TV program to be dealing with gambling addiction, it is unbelievable. They
could have pushed that even more, I guess.
Yeah. Like you say, Morley had nicked the frame and sold it to the antique shop, and it was found by two of the other teachers, Mr. Mackenzie and Miss Booth, because they bought the photograph because they recognised Mr. Griffiths as a young man in the photo. And
I was just seeing it in the teachers or the room where they all laughing at because
they're all laughing at how it's definitely Mr. Griffiths. And Rod worked out that it was Morley who had nicked the photo because of the description of the lads who'd sold it to the shop. The description was big, dark-haired, and ugly. So Rod went straight to Morley because he was worried that Mr. Griffiths and Mr. Hargreaves would then find out about the card school. So we went to Morley and said, you've got to get the frame back, because Mr. Mackenzie had taken it for use in a CDT lesson to make a better frame, I think it was, because that photo frame that it was in was actually Mr. Hargreaves' one, which had also been stolen, but not by Morley. And Morley
storyline and all these.
Yeah, it was. When I've been researching it, I had to keep going backwards and forwards to find out which frame was which and what photo was which and stuff like that. And Morley got the frame back and he gave it to Rod, and then Rod binned it, so, sort of wiping his hands as he walked away from the big bin. And now you mentioned the cigarettes. He was getting 7 to buy them.
First years or something.
Yeah, so he was selling them to the first years, which, as you said there, completely obliterates his conscientious side earlier on. And
a few more quid now.
Yeah, but he was also getting 7 to put bets on as well for him.
Bookies, yeah.
And like you said there was more and more illicit activities getting displayed, getting shown, and it looked like it was going to go darker and darker. And then there's an episode where it's a Saturday morning, and Rod gets a delivery of boxes delivered to the school from someone called Walt, played by Roger Ashton Griffiths, who has gone on, Game of Thrones and all kinds. And it's weird with him because he always looks different in every character he plays, Roger, but he always looks the same as well. He always looks different, but he always looks the same. And to me, his character in Grange Hill is the original white van man. Because he turns up, the fella driving it, I don't know if you remember this, the fella driving the van's actually a Scouser.
Yeah.
As well. And I say the original white van man turns up, white van, proper attitude, hates everyone else. He's mouthing off to, I think it was Mr. Hargreaves who'd asked him to move his van, and he just give him a load of grief and drive off. And we don't know what's in the boxes at first. He just gets Cleaver to take these boxes and stack them in Mr. Griffith's office. And in the same episode, some of the kids were there looking for that dog again because the dog had gone out and gone to the school looking for Jacko's dog. And we hear Rod on the phone saying, "I've got a dog." And they assumed that meant he had Jacko's dog again, but really...
Not the 215 at Harringay.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. He's on the phone to his bookie, selling, saying, I don't know where it was, Doncaster, Bellevue, I don't know, yeah. Bellevue, I don't know. But yeah, so the kids hid from Rod and they ended up in the caretaker's office and they were trying to climb out the window and they fell into the boxes. And we find out for some reason, do you know what was in the boxes? Can you remember?
This is the egg stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, like...
What's a weird storyline?
A load of eggs had been delivered. Now, I'm guessing Rod was keeping them or selling them. Or that was supposed to be...
for the skinhead, Roger.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the storyline that he was...
and they smash
all the eggs and they escape out a window. Rod goes...
eggs and all that.
Yeah. Rod goes into the office and realizes that all these eggs... And he blames Cleaver at first. But the thing with that is, you start to realize maybe there's something else going on because when he realizes all the eggs are broken, he sits there going, "Why does it always happen to me?" And he's looking a little bit scared. And you start, because that thing is, the eggs are broken, so what? And he assumed Sever had broken them because he was the one that had stacked them. But Sever said it couldn't have been him. And Rod said, "Well, you better find out who it was then." And Trevor heard the lads talking about being in the school on the Saturday. And when Rod confronted him about breaking the eggs, he said they'd have to pay for them. And when the lads said they couldn't afford it, well, Rod said, "Well, your mummies and daddies will have to pay for it instead." But then the lads said that they'd have to tell the police about the white van that they'd seen in the school grounds on Saturday.
He changed his tune.
Yeah, because people had been looking for this white van, because it was believed that the white van had been going around stealing dogs or stealing animals or pets or whatever, and Jacko's dog was still missing. So Rod walked off. He just walks away and leaves it then. But this is the bit you were saying before about, some of the scenes you had with Mr. Griffiths. I love this scene because this scene is possibly Grange Hill's rudest ever joke. No. Now, people talk about how the fact that there's never any swearing in Grange Hill. But when I've been doing research for other interviews, there's a scene very early on in the Tucker days where they all grab Doily. And it sounds like, "I'm going to kill you," right? It sounds like that gets said. There's another scene where a girl goes into a lad's bedroom and writes graffiti all over the wall. And the word "dickhead" can be seen on the wall. But this is possibly the rudest joke ever told in Grange Hill. That was
Georgie
done on purpose, right? So they're in the science lab, which was Mr. Hankins' science lab, played by the amazing Lee Corns. Just
lovely.
What a guy! Just unbelievable. He's been on the podcast, and I was made up with Lee Corns because he's been in so many of my favorite programs. Like
you see a lot of me stand up back in the day. Well,
just a brilliant character. But they're talking about Mr. Hankin, and you obviously can't remember what this bit of conversation was. So they're talking about Mr. Hankin, and Rod says, "You know what the kids call him, don't you?" Right? And Mr. Griffith says, "Yeah, I can guess." And I just think that's
rhyming slang, isn't it?
That joke isn't there for the kids that are watching it. That's not there. That's there for the adults that are watching it. That joke, it's got to be. But yeah, I love that. I love that scene. Like, you know what the kids call him? Yeah,
I forgot about that. Completely.
So we see, and we've talked about, Rod looking scared when all the eggs were smashed and all that, and how the eggs needed paying for. And we see him on the phone, and things are starting to take a little bit of a darker turn. We still don't know exactly what, but Rod's on the phone saying, "Don't worry, you'll get something And then he says, yeah, I do know what'll happen to me, which is suggesting Rod might be in things a little bit deeper than we first thought. Because Mr. Griffiths then tells Rod that the school is going through far too much floor polish for the amount of for the amount of cleaning that gets done, and a lot of the plates. Yeah, a lot of the plates have been disappearing, and he couldn't understand why. And then we see Rod giving.
Remember any of that?
Yeah, we saw Rod giving Walt boxes of floor polish and washing up liquids.
Okay.
In his white van because he had no money for the man. Because that's what Rod had said. The man wants his money. And Rod said, well, that's all I've got. And then Walt came back to the school saying things like, time's up, Rod. Now, it was a weird time on Grange Hill because they started using background music, which they'd never done, to add like sort of effect to the scene.
Sort of drama and tension.
Grange Hill didn't need it.
Yeah.
I don't think it needed it because it had never had it before. And it's just a weird time.
That series, series 13.
Yeah.
That was the year that they changed the theme tune as well from the original. So perhaps they were just going and trying a new different thing.
Maybe. Yeah.
That took some time to get used to that new theme tune, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. But when you listen to it as a piece of music, it's brilliant. It really, really is. Obviously, me, the podcast called Sausage on a Fork, so I'm Chicken Man all the way. The new one, as good as it is, it's not Chicken Man, so Chicken Man wins every time for me. But yeah, so Walt turns up, time's up, Rod, and Rod said he's got no money, and he gives him a video recorder instead.
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember that. And there's a payment or something.
Yeah, so Walt said, well, I'll be back for the rest of the money. But as Walt's walking out to school, he gets stopped by Morley and Mr. Robson, Stuart Organ, another absolute legend. And it's so sad that, he recently passed away. What was it like? What was he like with you, Stuart? I know you didn't have too many scenes, but...
Well, I was only on it for a few months, wasn't that series, that year. Got on really well with him, I think, and I don't think we had any scenes together, not many. But I used to bump into him a lot. Occasionally. Yeah. He used to do a lot of work, Stuart, up at the Queen's up in the Hornchurch.
All right.
Theatre. So if I'd seen shows up there, I'd bump into him. He must have been local and part of their rep. Did loads of stuff up there, and I'd seen shows that he was in.
Yeah.
Lovely man. Lovely man.
Brilliant. So they drag him back into the school. The police then get called. Rod is sacked, but before he does, he has a bit of a rant at the staff saying, you know nothing about what's going on in the school. And he tells them all about the card schools and everything that have been going on, going out with a bang. And we never saw Rod again after that. Were you only ever contracted for the one series?
Yeah, I think so. I can't really remember. I think it was going to be an option if I wanted to stay on.
Right.
But I think because they didn't get as dark the storylines and as intense as I thought they could have gone, they could have gone a lot deeper, with different storylines I said to you earlier. So I think I just did that series really. But at the same time I was doing that in '89, I was doing another series for Euston Films on the other side of the road at the old EMI studios.
Right.
Because where they filmed Grange Hill, I told you, was the old ATV, which is the old Douglas Fairbank studio from the original studios.
Yeah.
In the 30s. There's still this lovely old Art Deco 30s building, the original stadium now. But I was doing Capital City.
Oh, right, yeah.
It was for Euston Films. And luckily, they never clashed. The times I had, the days worked out that I was one day doing Grange Hill, the next day doing Capital City. And it was really, but until there's one day when I was filming them both on the same day. And I was, so I was thinking, I was in Capital City, I was playing like a shoe shine boy. It was all set in the, all about the sort of the money, the city boys then making loads of money in the mid-80s. They used the same set actually for a film with, Tom Hanks, no, one of those big American stars at the time, mid-80s. Anyway, it's the same set. And so I was filming at Capital City, Euston Films in the morning. And my Grange Hill call was in the afternoon.
Right.
And it's getting close to lunchtime. And I just literally, I think I finished and just got straight, literally run across the road, ran the back to the BBC and went straight into rehearsals or straight into filming for that. It was just the only time it ever came close.
Yeah, that's like a sitcom episode or something, that isn't it?
It was for me.
Yeah.
And that same studio, the EMI studios, is where we had the 40th anniversary a little while ago as well.
Oh, yeah.
40th anniversaries things were in the old EMI studios at Elstree.
Brilliant. Now, you did a few things, and after, obviously, you were an actor at this point, and obviously, wasn't like child actor doing little bits. You were a professional actor. That's what you are. I was often wondering, right, because obviously as a child you wanted to be an actor, right?
Yeah, always as a kid. I think that just comes from Saturday morning pictures and going to the cinema was my way.
Yeah, I know this is a weird question, right? Because loads of kids want to be professional footballers, but they're not good enough to be professional footballers. When do you realise that you're good enough to be a professional actor?
I don't know, mate. Actually, just something I just took for granted, I suppose.
Right.
Do you go for that phase because you were a kid actor? And so I think even Paul McCarthy mentioned this in his podcast with you, that there was loads of us, stage school and so many good actors, young actors, kid actors, young actors who never went on to do it, and it's a tough old game. That's why it's a tough business. I mean, it was then, and it in some ways is even tougher now. You have to do and know so much more, I guess. And I went through that phase of being a kid actor because I looked younger than I was. I was 13, 14, and I looked 11 or 12. At that age, that time, you made a lot of difference, And so I became after a few years, you became too old to be a kid and too young to be like an adult, really. In your late sort of teens and things. Although I was still playing kids when I was like 17, 18, though.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I think school kids for a while. Then I just, you get a little bit older, and I just became a jobbing actor, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know that sounds like a daft question, but it's just one of those things I've always thought about. So, talk a bit more.
I just worked, and I just kept going, and that it's very lucky in a lot of ways, and you have to subsidise yourself and do other things. I mean, you can't just be an actor. Right. I'm lucky enough and being able to have done other things to keep me going. I've done loads of jobs over the years and still do, just to.
Yeah. Well, like you were in the Paradise Club, which I remember with Leslie Grantham, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But Bruce Dickinson was in that episode.
Yeah, the episode that I did. We filmed all that at the Camden Palace. I think I might have been a rock journalist or something like that in that episode. Yeah. And so me and Bruce, we shared a caravan, I think.
Brilliant.
Camden.
Brilliant. And I have to talk about this because I loved Harry Enfield's television program. And you're in an episode of that, and the reason I'm mentioning that is because you were in the same scene as Danny Cunningham. Danny Cunningham was the burglar, and you were the copper.
Oh yeah, right.
So you weren't on screen at the same time, but it's in the old Gits house.
It's the old Gits, isn't it? So I go around there as a copper, and Paul Whitehouse makes me smell his feet.
Yeah. So they've kicked Danny Cunningham out of the house as the burglar, or he's legged it, and then you came in later on, and I love that because obviously you're both in Grange Hill. You're both,
Oh, that's lovely. Just a laugh couple of days. They filmed those in front of a live audience as well.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the first series. So my old mate Kath Burke, I talked about earlier. So Kath was doing that then. It's the first time they'd sort of done Wayne and Wayneetta and sort of stuff, the slobs and things.
Yeah. And that loads of things that you were in, and Sean's show with Sean Hughes.
Little comedy things, little sketches and things. Loads of stuff that it's not even on listed and stuff. There's loads of stuff that I've forgotten, obviously, and loads of things I've never seen.
Now, I'm going to mention you were in Pie in the Sky, right?
Oh yeah,
you were part of a motorcycle gang, is that right?
Yeah.
Now,
Robert Restaurant, I think.
As someone whose character name from acting became their nickname, I think you're really lucky that this nickname didn't stick, because your character in that is called Red Helmet. So
Yeah, that's a bit awkward.
Yeah. So
I
like,
think we were a motorbike gang of thieves. I think we all had different colour, like crash helmets,
yeah.
red helmet, blue helmet,
But I
silver
just
helmet.
thought, yeah, he's lucky that one
Yeah,
didn't stick, isn't he? Like
no, thank God for that. Yeah, and same as the Terry and June episode. I mean, lucky I didn't
Magnus.
never became Magnus. You know,
And
although the Terry and June episode, I filmed that literally a week before my first episode as Pickles.
oh,
So we
right.
recorded that Terry and June on the Friday night in front of a live audience at
Yeah.
Television Centre. And on the Sunday, I went down to Southampton on the train on my own,
Right.
and then I was filming Pickles on the Monday morning. You know, so
Wow.
literally a couple of days from Magnus to Pickles. You know.
Brilliant. And you were in, is it a film called Bodywork?
Oh yeah,
Now,
mid-90s, and another Wurzel connection because Charlotte Coleman
yeah,
was
that's
like
what I was
one
going
of
to
the leads
say.
in that.
Like, yeah, Charlotte
Linda,
Coleman.
and Linda Bellingham from Murphy's Mob as well was in that.
All right.
Mike Atwell, actually, who played Bill Sykes when I did Oliver as a kid, was in that
Wow.
film.
But
I can't remember much about it. I think I was another sort of gangstery type thing who thought he was American. He kept
yeah.
being
Well,
American.
your character was called Ratso, so I guess he's not
Yeah,
going to be a nice character. But
and he thought he was an American gangster, and yeah.
now, I want to just mention Charlotte Coleman there because obviously, sadly no longer with us. But just how good was she? Because I remember her from Wurzel Gummidge, and I remember her from Marmalade Atkins.
Yeah, brilliant in that. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, when Renee Alperstein was on, I watched a bit of because Renee Alperstein was a dancer in Marmalade Atkins, and
right.
there's a song and dance routine that Charlotte Coleman does, and I watched it and I just thought she's brilliant.
She was a wonderful actor.
She's so good.
A brilliant actor. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that must have been nice to get to work with her again.
Yeah, it was really lovely
after
to see her for a few years.
all them years.
She left fairly locally, and sort of Muswell Hill with loads of mates and things. So I used to bump into her occasionally, you know.
Yeah, and then at one point you made that well-travelled route from Grange Hill to Albert Square.
Oh yeah. I just did a couple of episodes as an ambulance man,
paramedic. But am I right in thinking they were like 2 years apart? But you played the same character.
An old mate. Yeah, it's an old mate. I think I got that shot through Pell.
Right.
And they were just looking for a part, and he said, I think it might have been the director, John, at the time, who was doing that. He said, would you want to, would you do it? It's only a little bit. Yeah, well, I'm happy to do it. And I had to resuscitate Pat Butcher.
All right.
On the kitchen floor, I think.
Brilliant. And of course, you were in the bill.
I've got nicked quite a few times in the bill.
Yeah, 5 different times. I've seen that.
For terrorists. And then later on, I became a dad who lost a kid in the car, left his kid in the car, and the car got stolen.
Oh, wow. Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, Todd Carty was in.
Yeah, I think
some of them, like
one of the ones with Todd, I think, is one of the episodes I did. And
yeah,
the earlier ones.
Now, and you've done
for it all, mate. You'll be here for hours.
Yeah, but you've done like quite a few films as well with some of the things I was talking about. Now, there's a film called #Lost Dog Film.
Yeah, that's
short.
Andy Tiernan's film. That was a short film to hopefully make a movie. That was about disability, hate crime.
Yeah, and
the last sort of 20 years or so, I've been working in the theatre mainly.
Right? Yeah,
things, but mainly in theatre and especially like disability arts.
Yeah,
and through a mate of mine, Jamie Bedard, who's an actor, writer, director. Initially, I got involved with them with Graeae over 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago when Jamie first worked for them. And my mate Andy was just on the case, on the calls of, because after we did the Graeae, the theatre I do a lot of work for, Graeae Theatre Company, Disabled Led Theatre Company.
Right.
Jenny Seeley, who's their artistic director, co-directed the Paralympic Opening Ceremony.
All right, yeah.
So we did one of the Graeae shows that I did. I do a lot of audio description. So I describe shows for visually impaired, blind audience members. But one of the shows we did, Reasons to be Cheerful, a show based on Ian Jury's music about 2 young lads who want to get tickets to see Jury at the Hammersmith Odeon. It was a half show, half gig. Brilliant show. We did it all over the world. We've done shows in Brazil and Mexico, Germany, and 3 tours here. And so 2012 was bonkers. So we did a tour of Reasons. And then I went for 2 months I do a lot of access support. So I support a lot of disabled actors, artists, musicians and things as well as, and I did a lot of day services as well. I've got a history of care. work as well. That's I could bore you for hours. So I supported all the professional disabled artists for the opening ceremony.
Right.
So they learnt at a circus school in Hoxton. So they learned how to do the trapeze and ropes and the sway pole and things. And then we got to do the opening ceremony, like 2 days before the opening ceremony. It's like, okay, Pix, you've got to leave them alone and that's get somebody else to support the actors. So we did Spasticus Autisticus in the opening ceremony.
Right.
Which was just phenomenal. 80,000 people in the stadium, supposedly over 1 billion people watching it on TV. And irony of that, because Injury wrote Spastic Autisticus in 81, the year of the disabled, as an anthem, as a war cry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? About his tribe, as he called them. But the BBC didn't get it and they banned Spasticus and
wow.
Really didn't get it at all. But the irony of that, come the opening ceremony, we did it in the opening ceremony to the
Brilliant. And is that how? Forgive me for forgetting his name, but one of the entertainers at the Grange Hill reunion last year.
John Kelly. John Kelly was the lead singer in Reasons. Yeah. So what my thing was like getting to about 2012 and Lost Dogs. So initially talking about Lost Dogs. So after the Paralympic opening ceremony and the Paralympics that year in 2012 in London. Everything was just, everyone was just, aren't disabled people brilliant, and then the access is amazing, aren't we wonderful, and things are all open again. But as soon as the Paralympics finished, within a few weeks, disability hate crime went up like 40%.
Wow.
It's just bonkers, just outrageous. And so that was so Lost Dog film was just like a small, like 15-20 minute trailer to make a full film. We never got the budget to do it, unfortunately.
No.
I did a couple of films for Andy,
But your character in that is billed as Pickles.
Yeah, that was just being me. We improvised. It was just me and Jamie. So Jamie, my mate earlier talked about, Jamie was a guy just about to lose his benefits and things and his care and stuff. And so it's a very sort of political film about disability hate crime.
Right.
Jamie never got made.
And UK 18.
That's another one of Andy's films. Yeah, I did a little bit. That's about conspiracy theories and things and all that.
Right.
Well.
Tim Bentinck's in that. He was in Grange Hill. He was a dad.
Yeah, and
Ian Hart was in it. Yeah. Ian Hart, to me, a lot of people think of Ian Hart and they think of the first Harry Potter film because he was like the villain in that. But Ian Hart, to me, is the best on-screen John Lennon that there's ever been in Backbeats, and that's the only reason I'm mentioning that film, because I just think he's the most John Lennon I've ever seen. Ian Hart, so
that was another film that was all about a pseudo sort of future where like criminals and disabled people are cold and stuff as well. You know what I mean? A lot of dark undertones to it.
Yeah. And then a thing called Scatterbrook Days.
So that was a little tribute to Wurzel, really. So we went back down to the old location. So this was just the year before lockdown, so 19, I guess.
Yeah.
So myself and Jeremy Austin, who played the young lad, played Charlotte Coleman's brother in Wurzel. The pair of us went back down to the old location. I was just like an extra. I just want to be part of it. We made a little short film as a little homage.
Yeah.
And so this guy Stuart, who wrote these Wurzel books, another one who does all these podcasts and another super fan like yourself who just knows so much about the show and written books about every episode and things. So we just went back down and created a little thing. With Mike as well, played the dad.
Yeah, do you know what? That was what caught me eye when I saw it. I thought, what, Mike Berry? And I was genuinely like,
it's just lovely. It's like a little mini Wurzel reunion to go back down there to the same locations, which were really more or less the same as they were like 45 years ago, just overgrown a bit.
Yeah.
I think we went back to the field, the 10-acre field. We went onto the field, did some filming there into Stockbridge and to the old barn and things where we filmed a lot of the stuff. Yeah, it was a lovely little tribute, that film.
I meant to ask you this earlier on when we were talking about Wurzel Gummidge. John Pertwee must have been amazing to work with. You go down there as a kid and you think, right, he's Doctor Who and he's Wurzel Gummidge. Do you know what I mean?
To me, he was like Doctor Who, really. And a lovely thing, let's just quickly say as well, that at the moment, Talking Pictures have been showing
Yeah.
the whole series again, because they found the lost tapes, all these reels of film, actually, the lost film, about 5 years ago.
Wow.
They was doing some research for something else, and they just asked one of the guys who did the book of the short film, said, have you got any Wurzel stuff, while he was researching for some Doctor Who things and things. He said, we've got a few bits. And they found everything in this cupboard. They'd been there for over like 30 years, all these old rusty old tins. And cut a long story short, because the rights then weren't where they are now, and they didn't want to do them. But since then, they've all been remastered and re-HD'd, and sound and the picture quality are just absolutely stunning. We did a showing at the BFI last year off the big screen, and they showed 3 episodes. On the stage was like Sue-Patt, and Mike, Linda, myself, and Jerry, and it was just like we did a Q&A thing. But to see them up on the big screen, and to watch them every Friday at 6 o'clock at the moment, I'm seeing as many as I can. It's just, you realise how good they were, And they look and sound amazing. They stand up to this day.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing, and I don't know, like people who maybe weren't around at the time. Where's It Going was massive, wasn't it? It was huge. They did it because they got to go the road. They went to Australia, didn't they? There was a thing.
They filmed that. They couldn't get the right to do. They did 3 series here.
Right.
Pickles episode in the second series, and then I did a big old dancing, singing Christmas episode, cup of tea and a slice of cake.
Yeah.
But they were going to do another series here, and I think it's all to do with the strikes I was telling you about earlier on, when all those companies, those independent companies, lost their franchise and things, and there were strikes and stuff. So they couldn't do it here, so they had to do it. I think no, there wasn't. Australia went to New Zealand.
Oh, right, yeah.
A couple of series in New Zealand.
But I just remember it because it was huge, wasn't it? It was one of those programs you didn't get away from. And even
seen it back on terrestrial TV for the first time. It's like over 30 odd years since it's been on real telly,
Yeah, brilliant.
And seeing that the quality is
and then the last film I'm going to mention then was one. I'm not going to give it its full title. I'm just going to call it DFWM because I don't like swearing. So
that's a little film I did, a short film I did last year. It's just one on the wall. That's just a one on the wall at the Folkestone Short Film Festival.
Yeah.
Best mockumentary, I think that just this one. So it's my old mate Nicola Wright and Joe, who wrote and directed this film. We just had a laugh. I just played a plumber. She's basically a granny drug dealer.
Right.
Sells drugs to everybody. You don't mess with her. You don't mess with a granny.
Yeah. Like Mo from EastEnders, Layla Moore, like her, is it?
Right. No, not quite. But it's a lovely little film, all improvised with some fantastic little characters doing little cameos and things.
I'll be honest, because when someone normally tells you that they're playing a plumber in an independent film, it's normally a different type of film. I'll be honest.
I was just having to do it for Joe. And, just glad to be involved in that. I did another film for another mate last year as well. Just playing a horrible, nasty, sexist, racist, horrible character. But my bits.
Is it hard to play those types of characters?
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to be horrible, but I did have second thoughts about doing that, to be honest, because he was so horrible. But,
because I know when David Shaw was on here, he was saying at the same time, because obviously David Shaw always plays like a big, horrible, gruff character, but he said when it's like someone who is racist or anything like that, he said he really struggles doing things like that because it's
a struggle, to be honest. I was doing these scenes and I just kept apologizing to all the crew and all the other actors. Before and after I did these scenes, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, so what are you doing at the minute?
Well, like I said to you earlier, Neil, really, I've just been doing lots of theatre, I guess, for the last 20 odd years, mainly. Disability arts and Graeae, I mentioned earlier, I've done loads of stuff for them. The Reason to Be Cheerful and other shows over the years, loads of tours.
Yeah.
As mainly as an audio describer within the shows, because an accessible production of any theatre show, you're lucky if it gets there's a sign language interpreter every 6 months if you're lucky, or it might be described once a year. But with a Graeae show, every show is accessible every day. There's in the sign language, there's audio description, or there's captioning. So every show is accessible for everybody every day, And Graeae, I do loads of international work. Jenny Seeley, who's the artistic director there for the last 25 years or so, amazing woman. She's they do some brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
I've just done some R&D for them last week actually for a new show production. They're doing a version of Romeo and Juliet later in the year. So,
yeah. I am okay now.
My other half, I met my other half actually, Jenny, through Graeae, and Jamie again, like 22 years ago. Jen's sign language interpreter and a theatre director herself. She's got her own company, Fingersmiths, who makes do bilingual theatre in BSL, British Sign Language, and in English. They do some amazing work. And work for them.
And can you sign yourself?
I sign a little bit. I did my up to my level 2.
Right, brilliant.
Years ago, but I got a lot of deaf mates, and I just work most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. No, I can do the alphabet, and that's probably about it, to be honest. Like, I just think people that can't sign, it's like, it's such a great thing, a great skill to be able to do. And I'm hearing that they're going to be introducing it to schools, from what I've heard as well. Like,
well, next year and things are going to be hard and stuff, which is
and rightly so. You know, not before time. Like, okay. So I'm going to ask this question, and I think I already know the answer. But are you still in touch with any of the cast from when you were on Grange Hill, or from before your time on Grange Hill, shall we say?
A few of them. I don't really see Todd as often as I used to. I bump into him occasionally again. Gary Love, I talk to him, occasionally every sort of few months. We might say, catch up, but not really, mate. To be honest, Mark Baxter and Paul McCarthy, I see more than others because of the reunions recently. Like when I met you briefly last year at the 45th reunion thing, and
what a day that was! Do you know what? I came away from that thinking, I didn't get older Wayne. I didn't get an interview with Wayne on that one, and I was a little bit.
I know. I'm sorry, mate.
But it was one of them days, wasn't it? Like, paths just didn't cross.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right, so John Kelly was dead. John's got his own band, Ron Kid Paddy, and he's got an album last year.
He was brilliant, him.
He's an amazing performer, singer. Yeah,
we stayed for that bit, and I thought he was brilliant. I loved that whole variety thing.
Bespoke guitar, the Kelly cast that can play and things and all that. I've just come back from Canada with him a few weeks ago. Actually, he was doing a couple of gigs out in Canada, supporting him out.
No, you've just
so I'm Paul McCarthy's brilliant at all that MC stuff. You know what I mean? He's a brilliant DJ and as well. And he just run that night, him and Mark, which is fantastic.
Now you've just said there you've just come back from Canada. Now I was going to ask you this: have you ever thought about doing any sort of travel program? Because we've been trying to sort this out for months, haven't we, me and you? And we couldn't because you were going to Australia. Then we couldn't do it because you were going to Canada. And I just looked at blimey, this fella needs to have his own travel show.
It's been a mad couple of months. Well, I went out to Australia to surprise my mum and dad for my 60th a couple of months ago. So that was that one. And then my aunt and uncle surprised us by taking us to Bali after that. And then I came back for a week. And then, then I was away with John in Toronto for
I love the way you just said that, like, I got taken to Bali for a week.
I know, mate.
It's like it was the worst thing ever.
It's all been a bit of a whirlwind the last couple of months, to be honest. So I'm sorry we keep missing each other, but I'm back now.
Yeah, back in good old Blighty. It's been quite sunny where you are today. You told me there, like, so. Okay, so we are sort of coming towards the end now, Pickles. So I'm going to ask you the same questions that I always ask at the end of every interview. Okay, they are all Grange Hill related. Okay, so recently, or in the last couple of years, there's been talk of a Grange Hill movie in the works. Phil Redmond is written it, and Sarah Sugarman's involved, and
Sarah's supposed to be directing. Well, Sarah's the director anyway. She's amazing. Yeah,
and Kellen Jones is involved as well. But what do you think of the idea of the Grange Hill movie?
No, I think it's brilliant. No, absolutely. I don't know what they're going to be doing with it, but update it and do it. Why not?
Yeah, and if you were asked, would we see a return of Rod?
I doubt it very much, mate. No, he was quite. I doubt that.
Not even if we just did like.
Obviously, I'd do it, but I don't think Rod was sort of part of the Grange Hill history as much as someone else.
I mean, we could do like I don't know, a pan past like a prison window or something like that, and just have Rod looking out of it
in a cell. In a cell in a brown coat.
I mean, that brown coat as well. You were never out of that brown coat, were you?
Really attractive that was.
And there was, you know what? There was a little orange badge on that. I was trying to work out what it said, and I couldn't work it out.
Yeah. I think I might have stuck a couple of those on myself, and
maybe they didn't have dickhead written on or anything like that. No, like no swear words you could get away with. Like, okay, so you had been involved in Grange Hill as an extra when you were younger and stuff, and I'm guessing you were a fan of the program.
Yeah, well,
Everyone was.
Only the first series had been. There hadn't been many other school-related programs. There was a series called Bunch of Fives, like the year before, I think.
Right.
That a young like Jamie Foreman and Leslie Manville were in, but there weren't really many school-related programs about kids of your own age and stuff, really.
So on that then, other than Rod, who was your favourite character in Grange Hill? From any time, by the way, from any.
Well, I only sort of really associated with the earlier years, really, when I sort of started watching it. And I'm going to be as predictable as most of the people on the it's Tucker. It's got to be Todd, isn't it? Because he was he was the coolest, cheekiest sort of character. He was Grange Hill, he sort of put it in all that first sort of two series, all those sort of characters. But Todd, Terry and George, I guess, and Paul sort of stood out more than others. But yeah, I'd love to have been Tucker.
Right. So okay. So if you could have played someone else,
obviously,
it would have been Tucker. Yeah.
He was the show, wasn't
he? Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. So then the final question, then Pickles, is why do you think there is still such affection for Grange Hill?
Well, like I just said, because back then, I guess when Grange Hill first started, there was only there wasn't much to see. Just a few channels, and there weren't many programs that were about you at that time, about young kids and things at school. And I guess kids identified with it really, and just stayed with it for a few years as they got older. And you watch those characters grow up and the same. They were the same age as you, a lot of them. And that's part of growing up, really. But and watching TV series when there wasn't much that you could relate to.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It was so real, but it also, I mean, obviously there's going to be far-fetched stories. At the end of the day, it's a drama, isn't it? So they have to put some things in, but it was real, kids.
And there wasn't much like that at the time,
No, I've said that loads of times. It was all like Just William and the Famous Five, and
Bunch of Fives was early before, and there was a series like in the late sort of 70s, Headmaster. So like that was a series based as well. Was it Frank Windsor who played the master? And that was,
right, it might have been. Yeah,
that was an older thing. It was like an evening program, but that was school related.
Yeah.
A couple of those were.
Yeah, and like the Paper Lads was another one around that time as well. I've heard of. I've never seen it, but I've heard of it as well. Like
that might be the one that Phil Daniels was in. Same sort of time and things, but there wasn't a lot of kids drama with kids.
Yeah,
being real.
Brilliant. Well, Pickles, thank you so much for finally coming on.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much. And
it's been great talking to you.
Likewise, mate. Thank you.
Honestly, I've really, really enjoyed it. So, like I say,
I could have sort of bored you for hours. Really.
Once again, thanks so much. It really has been great talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. And to anyone that's listening, I'll speak to you next time.
Yeah. Catch you soon for a light haul, hopefully.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye-bye.